In the world of fantasy, few creatures are as recognizable as orcs. Known for their brute strength and violent nature, they are often portrayed as the ultimate antagonists, fearsome warriors bred for destruction. But while they have become synonymous with modern fantasy, the origins of these monstrous beings stretch far beyond the pages of novels or the screens of video games. To understand the story of orcs is to peel back layers of mythology, folklore, and cultural reinterpretation, revealing a creature that is as much a product of our imaginations as it is of ancient fears. Orcs are typically depicted as tall, muscular humanoids with grotesque, exaggerated features. They often have green, gray, or dark skin, sharp tusks protruding from their jaws, and glowing eyes that seem to radiate malice. Their movements are primal, their weapons crude but deadly, and their societies are characterized by chaos and domination. Orcs are usually envisioned as tribal beings, valuing strength above all else and thriving in conflict. In many stories, they are foot soldiers for dark lords or agents of destruction, driven by an insatiable appetite for war. Yet despite their fearsome reputation, there's always been something compelling about their raw, untamed nature, an allure that has kept them at the forefront of fantasy storytelling. The modern term orc has its clearest medieval source in the Old English epic Beowulf. Written between the 8th and 11th centuries, this foundational work of English literature includes the word orkneas in a passage listing various beings associated with the supernatural. Eotanas on Ilfa, on orkneas, often translated as giants, elves, and orkneas. The exact meaning of orkneas is debated among scholars, but it is generally taken to refer to spirits or phantoms connected to death, the underworld, or realms beyond human understanding. Unlike the tribal, warlike orcs of modern fantasy, the orkneas of Beowulf were shadowy, almost spectral beings, whose vague and ominous presence reflected a medieval fascination with the unknown. While the poem provides little detail about their nature or appearance, their mention evokes fear and reinforces the poem's themes of chaos and the threat posed by the supernatural to the human world. The roots of the word orc go even deeper, connecting to the Latin orcus, a term linked to the underworld and the Roman god of death. This association with death, darkness, and the supernatural gave orcs a primordial connection to fear and the unknown. Over time, these early references merged with other European folklore, including the Norse myths of trolls and giants, to shape the broader concept of monstrous humanoids that would later evolve into the orcs of modern fantasy. While Beowulf provides the clearest medieval mention of orcs, similar creatures appeared in other works of the time. Medieval bestiaries, which cataloged fantastical beasts alongside real animals, often included descriptions of monstrous races that lived beyond the edges of the known world. These beings were seen as symbols of the chaos lurking outside the bounds of Christian civilization. They were not yet the orcs we recognize today, but they shared traits of savagery and otherness that would later define the creature. The leap from medieval sources to modern fantasy came much later, with J.R.R. Tolkien's seminal works The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien borrowed the word orc directly from Old English, preserving its connotations of something dark and fearsome, while reshaping it to fit his fictional world of Middle-earth. In Tolkien's stories, orcs were malevolent beings bred for conflict and destruction. They were portrayed as inherently cruel, and violent, embodying the chaos and brutality often associated with monstrous figures in medieval literature. Tolkien's use of orcs gave them a distinct role in fantasy fiction as formidable, relentless enemies, while also tying them to their literary roots as symbols of disorder and the unknown. Tolkien's influence on the depiction of orcs cannot be overstated. His works established the archetype of orcs as tribal, warlike creatures, a portrayal that has been adopted and adapted by countless fantasy writers, filmmakers, and game developers. Video games and tabletop games have added their own twists to the orcish mythos, sometimes humanizing them, other times emphasizing their savagery. Today, orcs are an essential part of the fantasy genre, instantly recognizable and endlessly versatile. What began as a brief mention in a medieval poem has grown into one of the most enduring creations of popular culture. Orcs have evolved far beyond their origins, becoming staples of fantasy worlds where they embody themes of chaos, conflict, and resilience. Whether portrayed as savage warriors, misunderstood outcasts, or beings with rich and complex societies, they remain a reflection of our fascination with the monstrous and the mysterious. Their enduring presence speaks to the power of storytelling to reshape and reimagine ancient myths for new generations.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel.